What's up, guys? Bringing another update today with drunk fish keeping. That's good. I advise more people to get in the hobby of drunk fish keeping because not only is it relaxing, but it's a great way to feel better about yourself on the inside. Anyway, today's video is coming to y'all about simple stuff is tank maintenance and cleaning water changes. So, water changes, they're important. Hopefully everyone knows why they're important, but if you don't, water changes are important because as fish produce waste, food, waste, piss, shit, and other detritus gets into the tank, the nitrifying bacteria in the tank will turn that from ammonia to nitrite to nitrate. As your nitrates build, you've got to get them out of the tank or you will end up with them spiking, causing damage to your fish, gills, the fish's general overall health. High nitrates can cause deformities in younger fish as they grow, so it's best to just do water changes. Hopefully you're doing them. You want to do anywhere from 10 to 20%, so if you're going to do them weekly, do like a 10%. If you're going to do them every 2 weeks, do them 20%. Part of that being said, water changes can be easy, they can be hard. Depends on how big the tank is and depends on your setup. My tank's fairly easy. It's 54 gallon corner tank, which you guys are all familiar with. You can do it with a siphon, which is kind of a hard way to do because you got to get the siphon to work, and you really can't work as much. You can get the pump siphons, which I prefer, because that allows you to get down to your sand bed and actually suck junk up out of the sand. You don't want to dig around in the sand too much. You don't want to stir up a whole bunch of anaerobic bacteria and just fog the tank out with bacteria. Or you could do it with, if you have a large tank, a couple 100 gallons, getting a pump, getting a big like Rubbermaid rolling trash can and dumping your water out that way. That's the really easy way to do it. If you have huge tanks, you have to do big water changes on 40, 50 gallons at a time, because otherwise if you do it the siphon way, it's going to take you half a day to do. And if you're cheap like me and get the little teeny tiny pump siphons that they're good for like 10, 15 gallon tanks, you will take like a good 20 minutes to get 10, 15 gallons of water out of the tank, which, hey, it's whatever, I was cheap. Couple things, depending on how your setup is. If you're running a sump, you don't really need to cut the sump off. I would, just because it'll allow a chance for you to drain the water out and then fill everything back up where it needs to be at and cut it back on. I run a canister filter. I do cut off while I'm doing my water change, just for the fact that I don't want this sucking up a bunch of junk and then spitting it right back out here. I'd rather wait until I've got the water level filled back up so I can run it without getting a lot of air pockets. Cut your heaters off, cut your power heads off if you're on a power head, or if you got a freshwater system running a power head. If you have a big enough freshwater system, you should be running one anyway. Cut those off just so they don't suck up air, because they use water for lubricity and it will damage your pump. A couple things, I always use this time to look in my tank. I don't have any water movement, so I can look over my tank, which I'll show you guys. You can really just see, over the tank. You can see what you're working with. If you've got anything out of whack, if you've got something hiding, if something's going on, now is a chance you can find it. If it's something bad like a big clump of algae, you can get out of the way. If there's some cyanobacteria, you can see it, clean it, treat it, whatever you want to do. Freshwater guys, you got blue-green algae. I know in my freshwater tank, when I do water change, I take the time to sit there and kind of rub any of the junk that's floating around like on my plants off so I can suck it up. Do my glass cleaning. I really scrub the crap out of my glass before I do the water change. Now I normally clean the front viewing pane of my glass almost daily just because I like clear into the tank. But hey, now with the water's out of it, it's a good chance to do it, and do it before you do your water change. That way you can suck all the junk back out of it. If you've got smaller tanks, like these, the 13 gallon, which I need to top the water back off. I got some salt crust there. If you have the smaller tanks like this that are salt and you run open lid, as I like to do, you will have a good amount of evaporation. Now, I don't brag about this a lot, but I actually don't do a whole lot of water changes on this 13.5, just for the fact that I'm literally putting a gallon of RO water in that thing almost every other day. So I am effectively doing a water change pretty regularly. Now I will get in there and do the sand and stuff every so often. But that water, I test it constantly, and that water stays good. So that was a little bit different. Now, the 54 doesn't evaporate enough for me to feel comfortable in doing that. The smaller one, like I said, I'm putting a gallon of water in, I think almost every other day. So, it's good. So, couple things. When you're doing your water changes, if you're a freshwater person, if you don't have an RODI machine or you have an RO machine, you got your own water. If not, try to use RO water unless you're on a well. I'm on city water, so I've got chemicals in my water that I really do not want to put into my tank. Same thing for doing the top off of my saltwater system. I just go and buy jugs. Now, some people will be lucky and have a local LFS that will actually have jugs, and they have RO water and they have RO salt water. This is actually my RO water. It's got my blue tag on it, so I know which one it is, so I don't mess up. Some places don't charge a lot for it. The place I go to, I can get 15 gallons of water for $10. Unless you're just trying to be ultra cheap or you're trying to fill up a 500 gallon tank, it's easier to buy the water a lot of times, especially if you have a local LFS that does it. I know Petco has pre-mixed salt water. I've used it before in one of my videos. It does well. It's got the mineral load and stuff that you want for reef systems or just for a fish-only live rock. But since I dose now, I don't feel like spending $15 for a 5 gallon of salt water because I'm dosing the way I need to for my tank. If you don't even want to dose, if you just want it all to be laid out, that stuff's not bad, but it is expensive. And if you're doing weekly or bi-weekly water changes, it's going to cost you anywhere from $15 to $30 to $50 to $60, depending on how much water you have to change out at one shot. I don't actually mix my water just for the fact that I don't have the time for it. If I didn't have access to a place and I had to like order salt, yeah, I'd probably just go buy a 30-gallon container to pre-mix my water in and a spare heater and such, so I could just put it back over and just mix my water the night before. A lot of the DIY guys do it. A lot of guys with bigger systems do it. You know, if I had a 500-gallon tank, I would not buy that water. I would make it myself. I would actually just buy an RO conversion machine, make my own RO water, add my salt to it, and then use it to do my water changes when I had a week to make that much water and salt it and get it to proper heat and check the salinity on it. Since the biggest tank I have right now is this, corner tank, it's not worth the hassle. It all depends though on budget and what you want to do with your tank, but you've got options out there to be done. Another thing, if you're doing your water changes, you want to do it as a percentage based on how big your tank is. Now, 10% is a good, weekly water change. It depends on how much stuff you have. Now, if you're overloading a system, if you're someone, let's say, with a 40 breeder or a 55 gallon and you've got a bunch of African cichlids in it and you're stocking it over so you don't have a bunch of aggression, then yeah, you want to do water changes every week because you're going to have a lot of nitrate buildup if you're overstocking a tank. Saltwater setups, right now I know for a fact I've probably got 6 or 7 snails, probably 10 little crabs in here. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pieces of coral, which don't really generate a lot of waste, and I have at the moment 6 fish in there. So there's waste being generated. The max when I had it running up before I had my crash, I was running 13 fish, 10 pieces of coral, and probably about 20 between crab snails for cleanup crew. So I was doing water changes every week, 10 gallons at a pop to get what I needed to do. So I was keeping my water clean because I was getting nitrate buildups. By the time I was ready for a water change, it was, the levels would match. Another thing I was going to bring up too, if you have fish death and you have fish die, like I did in my flex, I actually lost both my pistas and this one. The red cockatoo and the sunburst were gone. Don't know why, but they're dead. Found one of them in the plant, one of them on the gravel. No signs of aggression from anything else, and they were eating fine the day before, so I don't know if it was just their time or what. But when you're dealing with any type of system, you're probably going to have something die at some point. So if you can get it out, get it out. Now, when you get into bigger systems or if you have your rocks stacked up in a certain way, you might not be able to pull it out. It's the problem I used to have with this one. If you remember my original videos, I had on my rock kind of like stacked up in the back with cave systems and things like that, so fish could swim in and come back out and hide. But if I had a fish die, I had to tear half the damn thing apart to get it out, and that was a real pain in the ass. With the way it's set up now, I can pull 1 or 2 pieces of rock out, get pretty much anything I want out of the tank. So when you're doing your initial setup, if you're doing a reef system, just keep in mind, if you don't have the cleanup crew present to eat the fish before it decays, then you need to be able to get it out, unless you just don't give a damn and want to change the crap out of your water. For the smaller tanks like the 13.5, the Evo, I mean, there's 3 pieces of rock in there, and the biggest fish I have in there is 1.5 inches long, so I can pull him out in like 5 seconds. But otherwise, you want to be able to get what you can out of the system.